Yo guys, and welcome back to another series on this channel. And in this series I'm going to be doing something very different from what I was doing previously on this channel. All of my other content has pretty much been follow along tutorials. But for this project I'm actually going to be doing development logs instead. So I will be showcasing the process of me developing an application. And what is this application that I'm going to be working on? And it's a self-tracking app that I've been working on since 2023. It's about tracking various metrics in my life and also tracking habits and seeing how all of this correlates. See if there's any correlations between perhaps me taking more steps and my mood. Perhaps do I feel more energized after having slept for longer and things like that. So it's all about trying to optimize my life, and it's something I've been working on since 2023. And this was initially written in Svelte 4 as just a web application. But most people use their phones, right? Even myself, I wouldn't go out and bring up my fat desktop PC when I just wanted to track my mood during the day, right? So I actually wanted to have a mobile app for this as well. So I spent a considerable amount of time to learn the Flutter framework and the Dart programming language that is used with Flutter. And this was quite a big journey for me since I haven't done any mobile app development previously. But now you have a working web app and a mobile app, but all of a sudden you want to synchronize between the web and mobile platforms. What would this application be if I couldn't synchronize my data between these two platforms? So slap on a synchronization service, and of course we want this to be end-to-end encrypted as well, because we don't want any pesky database owner to be reading my data, right? So sounds amazing, right? Well, now you have two different code bases in two different programming languages that you have to keep in sync. If the sync protocol changes for some reason, if I wanted to add a new feature to that one, I would have to change it in both platforms. I would have to write the same code twice in two different programming languages. And I would also have to make this behavior work the same way on these two platforms. So this quickly became a maintainability nightmare, and it also didn't work that well. It was pretty buggy, and I spent almost all of my energy on this synchronization service and encryption service rather than making an actual useful app. I didn't actually implement that many features that were useful because I spent all my time working on the syncing and writing the same code twice. So I have decided to rewrite it all over again, but this time as a progressive web app in Svelte 5. So I'm gonna upgrade from Svelte 4 to Svelte 5. And this time around I will focus on making it actually useful. And this should be easier now because I will have one single stack to focus on, and I will be utilizing the web technologies that can be run on pretty much any device nowadays. There are also projects like Bubble Wrap and Capacitor, which will hopefully let me embed this in a native Android or iOS app so that I can still publish it on the Play Store and have it work somewhat in a native fashion. And this feels quite sensible to me as well, since I'm not really utilizing that many native features. It's not like I'm reading much native information from the device or using location services or anything else, and it will simply become much easier to maintain it this way. I also realized that this is quite a niche target audience with self-tracking and quantified self, and it's not really something that most people would be willing to pay for. It's not really a profitable business model that I could make a living off of or anything like that. It's also quite sensitive data that most people wouldn't be willing to share with a stranger. And this is why I've decided to make this project open source, and also why I'm going to be building it in public. Keeping it open source will make it fully transparent to what's going on behind the scenes, and people can also tweak it to their needs. And people can contribute if people want to add a new feature, or if they want some specific feature for their version, they can do that as well. So I think this is a good middle ground. It will make it more useful to more people, and that's all that I really care about. It doesn't really matter that I can't have a business around this project idea. So one of the main features that I want to have in this application is the concept of a trackable. And this will be for anything that you imaginably want to track. If you want to track your sleep, your steps, your food, your mood, your weight, anything that you can think of should be trackable in this application. And I thought of some different ways of visualizing this as well. We can have these two short modes for data like sleep and steps, and here you will see like the past week's sleep or past week's step count. And we'll also have these tables, and these are more for daily data where you might have multiple data points per day. So here you might want to see that, hey, for breakfast I had a ham sandwich, and for lunch I had fish and potatoes. You can see how your mood evolved during the day. And we also have these tally cards, so a measurement with a simple number. Where you press this button it will increment it. So things like times pooped or anything else that you can kind of imagine doing multiple times per day that you want to keep track of. And I also figured it would make sense to have something for longer term measurements, perhaps your weight and other things that don't change that often, but that you want to have a historic view over. So that's something that should be usable as well. And of course a little date picker at the top here, so that you can pick a different date and show how that looked for a specific date in the past. Just like in the previous version of this app, I also had a very similar component to that. So this is pretty much how I imagined the trackables view could look. Now this is only desktop, of course. I will have to work on making a mobile version of this as well. So now I have implemented this trackable view for the mobile as well, and this is something that I can't really foresee that well. I'm not really sure how much of this will be able to be implemented in the browser and still work in a responsive manner. Some of these layouts are quite different. This one might not be that different from the PC version, but there are others like the dashboard, for example, where I feel like it could be pretty difficult to implement the same HTML layout and have that render with perhaps CSS breakpoints and things like that. I'm not really sure how I'm gonna tackle that, so I might have a separate version that renders the mobile view. For example, this date picker here, that will not be possible to be implemented as the same component here. We're gonna have to split it up and render those separately, or hide this one and only show this one, for example. But yeah, we have something set up now for the mobile view as well. And I also played a bit with creating some drawer component and an app bar here at the bottom. I'm not yet sure how easy it will be to implement in the browser, but we will cross that bridge when we get there. And I also started implementing the goals view for the desktop version. So this is another feature that I would really want to have in this application, and that is to set the goals for specific measurements or trackables or habits to have specific values. So if I want to have daily steps, I want to take 10,000 steps on a daily basis, then I can set that up and have that be tracked, and I can go to this page and visually see how far I have progressed. And we can also have things like composite goals, where we have multiple metrics or multiple trackables that we check. So all of these need to be met if this goal is to be considered finished. So I have to burn enough calories and sleep well enough and hydrate enough for this healthy day goal to be met. And I also thought of things like setting deadlines for goals. I want to save $3,000 by this date. Well, then I will count my total saved money from the beginning up until this date and see how far I progressed. And also having things like weekly goals or monthly goals. If I want to save $200 weekly, then I can track that as well. So this is pretty much the features that I want to have for these goals, and it would be really nice to have this implemented. So I feel like this is one of the main features of this application that will really be useful to many users to stay on track of their goals. All right, so now I have started designing some of the form components that I'm gonna have in the forms that can be used for trackables or habits. The idea is that the user should be able to set up and customize their form exactly as they want. So that's really the main point of this application, is that it's supposed to be very customizable in terms of what you can do and what you can track. So these are some of the components that I thought about. Some form of segmented control. You can select between a bunch of options, and also these select components I think will be very useful to select various options. In this case, you can select even multiple options. You can also have icons. You can also only show the icon, and you can also only show the text. So this is pretty much what I had in the old version of this app. And also a range for picking from 1 to 10 or something like that. So this is just a normal use case I thought of. I also thought about this hierarchy kind of component where you first select one answer that applies if you feel happy, then you progress down into this hierarchy of levels. So it will show the level names here. This should be centered, of course. But yeah, so then you can go down even further, and only when you reach the bottom is when you select an actual value for this hierarchy. So these are some of the base components I think I will be implementing first in this application. And of course, we are going to have normal input fields. Just a normal HTML input field should be super easy to implement, just for basic text or basic numbers, maybe a date. The native HTML5 date picker also exists. So that's of course something I will be implementing as well. But yeah, I think this is enough design work for now. I actually want to start planning a bit how I want to structure the code as well.